Despite its arid lands, Namibia is surprisingly rich in habitats inland and along the coast. To date, it has 20 state-run protected areas that make up nearly 17% of the total land area. Most of these parks are vital for Namibia's tourism industry. When biodiversity is endangered, it no longer supports livelihoods and economic development. In their natural states, landscapes have no tangible boundaries with regards to the movement of wildlife, the dispersal of plants, and the changing climate.
Previously, the parks were managed in isolation. But as we know, that wildlife does not know the man-made boundaries. And equally, it's also that the vegetation that you find inside the park, you find also the same vegetation outside the park. So therefore, it just makes much more sense that you protect the biodiversity in a complex manner, in a bigger, wider area.
Because of the connectivity across landscapes, conventional solutions that only focus on one part of the problem cannot prevent biodiversity loss, coastal degradation, and consequent economic decline. Namibia is one of the few countries in the world that has adopted the creation of communal conservancies. Under this scheme, many landowners came together to conserve and manage natural habitats and wildlife using private lands. But that is often not enough to keep biodiversity in balance with human activities. The Jeff-funded NamPlace project helped develop strategies for land uses in areas adjacent to existing protected areas.
We want to tell the landowner next to protected areas that what the park is doing in terms of conservation biodiversity is not completely in opposite of what you're doing with your own land use in your own land. So we're trying to get the two stakeholders, being the protected area and the adjacent land, to develop a form of mutual compatible land use.
Landowners participating in the project have been encouraged to establish supply chains for biodiversity-friendly game meat production and certification systems to get the most out of the opportunities that new markets offer. As water is one of the main environmental limiting factors, the project also implements integrated fire and water management. Thanks to the project, landowners also use smart fires that burn densely growing bushes to let the new grass grow, that in turn becomes food for wild animals.
Here in this dry country, our water formula is like this. If it rains, 80% evaporates immediately. 15% goes into the ground, and evaporates through the trees. 3% flows off 3%, and 1% goes only to the deep water where we get our water for the wells. And here there's too much bush. And that's why we want to fight this bush encroachment.
In any landscape, wildlife cannot flourish without vegetation. The booming industrial and mining development in Namibia's deserts threaten the vital flora. Thanks to the project, the Namibian government adopted the Environmental Management Act and regulations that requires industries to protect the flora.
Previously, they would have just bulldozed over those areas and flattened them. And now they first are identifying the specimens, they are identifying their protected status, and they are supporting and facilitating for the lifting of these plants and rescuing them.
While flora protection policies are getting their first results, Namibia's industrial development still needs more incentives for better waste management to protect natural water streams that often supply water to neighboring cities. When polluted, these streams cannot support biodiversity, nor can they facilitate development in already arid lands of Namibia. The GEF's integrated approach towards Namibia's coastal management also helps bridge the gap between industrial development, tourism, fishing, and conservation.
It has to be a win-win situation for development and conservation. I think this is quite an important success story where you have a very important bird area here and the development on the other side, and it's more or less going hand in hand.
This project helped landowners test new, more innovative ways to manage their land sustainably. They also learned that better incentives and simple, practical guidance let farmers do so even better.
In the beginning, when you start from scratch and when you are a farmer, a normal farmer, then you are not at home with all these technical terms and who is doing what and government and the procedures, how things are done and so on. So it would be good to first of all to translate it into the mother tongue of the farmers, number one, and in very simple languages. Or use people like me, for example, who now worked into it over 2-3 years to understand better and explain to the other farmers what's it all about.
This public-private partnership between landowners and Namibian government gives a mutual socio-economic advantage to all participants. Because it protects biodiversity that's key to the survival of local communities.